So, Beth, are you able to press record?
Yep, we're recording.
That's great, thank you. So, hello and welcome to this Cert session on Prepare to Teach, specifically for music technology for year one. So before we dive in, I just want to start with a quick couple of introductions. So I'm Patricia Devlin. I'm a Provider Development Officer who supports providers in particular schools across the country with ongoing Cert onboarding, training and CPD. And I'm joined today by Beth Hudspeth, who's also a Provider Development Officer, and I'll let Beth introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Beth Hudspeth. As Patricia said, I'm also one of the Provider Development Officers. And for those of you who may not have heard of NCFE before, we are an educational charity and an awarding organisation that specialises in vocational education. At post-16, this includes our study programmes and T-levels. And at 14 to 16, this is our Cert Technical Awards. And it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Beth. So this webinar will provide a brief overview of the Cert Technical Award in Music Technology, covering the qualification, structure and assessment. We will explore the curriculum planning and formative assessment, where you'll have the opportunity to look at your pupils' knowledge journey and create a roadmap that will help you better understand how and when to teach the indicative content, as well as develop some formative assessment activities. We'll also share a summary of all the resources and support that will be available from NCFE to support you and your pupils before giving you the opportunity to create some teaching and learning activities of your own that can help deliver the content in an active and engaging way. Also, as a group, we'll learn from one another and share best practice on what you currently use in the classroom. And finally, there will be an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about the qualification. As well, we're aware that our quality assurance team have recently postponed sessions which cover how the Model 5 Certs are assessed. The rearranged dates for these have not been shared with us yet, but please be aware that this is not part of this training, so we are unable to answer any specific questions about the assessment regulations. The rearranged dates, though, will be before the end of this academic year, and you'll be well before you need the information about the assessment in year two. So you will have that before this academic year. So I'll hand over to Beth.
So before we begin, we're going to start with a starter activity. So we're going to do a quick poll on how confident you feel now with the delivery, assessment and quality assurance of this Cert qualification. So with 1 being no to little confidence and 10 being very confident.
So that should come up on your screen now. And it looks we've almost got a split between 5 and 6 and 7 and 8.
So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll be feeling more knowledgeable and confident about the delivery assessment and the quality assurance of Cert qualification. And we might get you up to 7s and 8s and 9 to 10s. Thanks everyone for completing. So the first activity we're going to start with is a KWL activity, and this is within your workbook that you've had emailed out. So what do you already know about the Certs and what do you want to learn about the Certs? And then after the session, as part of your reflection, what did you learn? So using your participants handbook, if you've not completed it already, the first 2 boxes, please take this opportunity to spend some time to do so. So we'll give you a few minutes to put what you already know and what you want to learn, and consider what you already know about the Cert in music technology. And then if you could post in the chat, once you've filled in your workbook, the one thing you do know and one thing you'd like to learn. We'll give you a couple of minutes to complete your workbook and then post in the chat one thing you know and one thing you want to learn. So Steve knows the subject specific content and wants to know more detail about the delivery and what the qualification is looking for. great. So we'll cover that within the webinar today.
Right, so we'll start with a brief overview of the structure of the Music Technology Technical Award qualification. So if you've taught the Music Technology vCert before, this will be familiar to you, but you'll notice it has been refreshed. So the guided learning hours are 139 hours, and this includes 120 for delivery, 17 hours for the NEA, and 1 hour 30 minutes for the EA. So that total qualification time is 153 hours, and this includes homework you might set or any independent learning. The NEA has a 60% weighting and the EA has 40% weighting. The content assessed in the EA and the NEA will be sampled from across the full breadth of the qualification. And the overall qualification grades are a level 1 pass up to a distinction for level 1, and for level 2, a pass up to a distinction star. If you'd like to pop into the chat, if you have taught the old model, that would be great. So your year 10s are going through this first Model 5 version of the 1 and 2 combined. That's great. Thank you. So I'll pass back to Beth.
Great, thanks, Patricia. So next we're going to look at curriculum planning in a bit more detail and what your learner journey is going to look like and why. I think the slides are frozen, Patricia.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
So can you not see curriculum planning with the quote there? Oh,
No, we're stuck on qualification structure.
right. I'll stop sharing and then start sharing again.
IT joys. That's it.
Back
Thanks.
again.
Yeah, it must have frozen.
Thank you.
So when considering curriculum planning, this quote really resonates with me, and I often refer to it when considering curriculum design and teaching and learning sequencing. The delivery of what you need to teach from the qual spec does not need to be, nor was it intent for it to be delivered linear. Space practice or distributed practice, which Dylan refers to, means space in retrieval and recall of knowledge over a period rather than cram practice, regularly revisiting prior learned materials. This is an important part of an effectively planned curriculum, providing opportunity for pupils to forget and relearn, supports the transfer of knowledge to the long-term memory. So considering the content areas, let's explore for a moment a blocked approach versus interleaving and how spaced learning and retrieval can support your delivery of the new Model vCert. Block study, which involves studying a topic before moving on to another, may have suited previous vCert models, which featured an end-of-unit assessment. However, the information isn't being transferred into the long-term memory, which needs to be the primary focus. So with the new model of vCert, such that students no longer do an end-of-unit assessment, and the ability to retain and recall large pieces of information has become even more important, and the science of learning evidence that interleaving is the most effective strategy. So the example on the screen explores how content area can be mapped using a blocked approach compared to an interleaved approach. So in the chat, can you let us know what approach you were planning or already have delivered? Were you planning to teach content area one by one, or have you explored to content and made the natural links across the content areas? So Steve's thinking about the interleaving approach, largely taught skills this year with a view of focusing this into an actual criteria next year. Okay. And Anthony, you have taught one by one. We use the synoptic projects as we go through, so students are recapping the skills and knowledge over again, so a mixture of both. So interleaving refers to mixing up subjects and topics, or in this case of the research content areas, instead of blocking them together. This helps students make the connections and leads to benefits in the transferred learner skills. In the context of curriculum planning and design, mapping the core content knowledge and understanding effectively, allowing that overlap and naturally holistic links, alongside carefully considered space practice and well-designed retrieval tasks and testing, it's an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst also helping prepare your pupils for the summative assessment of the core exams. And we'll come back to formative assessment methods to support practice testing and retrieval later in the session. But now we're going to have a look at the whole learner journey and how it's woven into the curriculum planning. So we will be aware of the qualification content, which is your curriculum, and you'll be planning the order of delivery. But it's also important to remember the whole journey, including the knowledge, skills, and behaviours that the learner needs to be successful in the chosen industry area. And we've added some of the areas which might be important to include here too. But this list is not exhaustive and would need to be individualised for each learner. So we have subject-specific, English, maths and digital skills, work and industry skills, communication skills, analytical, evaluative skills, and other problem-solving, adaptability, proactive, objectively, professionalism, and so on.
So the qualification is made up of the 5 content areas for music technology. So the specification includes the indicative content and the teaching guidance. I think, Beth, are you able to put the spec into the chat?
Yeah, I'll post that in now.
Thank you. So here's the visual of the structure for the new VCERT. And as you can see, the key points this year are to deliver the content in year 1, which, as I say, a lot of you've done already with your year 10s. And then year 2, you've got that NEA brief, which is coming out in the 1st of September. So that's when it's released. And then you've got until the end of April. So the marks have to be submitted by the 30th of April for the NEA delivery. So you can sit it within that time. You might want to, personally, if I was doing this, probably around October or between October and December, I'd probably do a practice assessment as well. So there's that option in there if you want to do like a mock assessment before they actually do the real one. So interleaving the content area is based on the idea of a learning journey that embeds knowledge and skills through the sequencing the curriculum. So pupils are required to combine elements of their learning and show accumulated knowledge and understanding across the qualification content. So synoptic assessment enables pupils to evidence their capability to integrate and apply knowledge, understanding and skills gained with the breadth and depth in context. It is therefore essential when planning for the teaching and throughout delivery that interdependencies and links build across the content of the qualification and are highlighted and reinforced. So the teaching content doesn't have to be delivered in a linear way. Content areas are interdependent in knowledge, skills and concepts. The teachers can take a synoptic approach across the qualification, and this will enable pupils to be able to apply theories and concepts from across the qualification specification in context to the skill-based situations. Through combining the content and developing a holistic connections, the pupils will be able to demonstrate and evidence their full knowledge and understanding of the subject area and the music technology industry. So this next slide shows a summary of the NEA tasks for music technology, including the marks to be awarded for each section. The key point to note here is that when you are considering the learner journey and sequencing the curriculum, the content areas need to be continually linked to the NEA and tasks. It's also worth considering how your learner journey will also link to the external assessment as well.
Hi, if you've just joined us, would you mind muting your mic just so we don't get any background noise? But welcome to the webinar. And you can unmute your mic at any point if you need to ask any questions, but it's just while we're presenting. Thank you. So we're going to start with activity 1. So let's get our thinking hats on. For this activity, I'd like you to think about how you would sequence the content and why. So consider if you need to teach it content area in its entirety or before moving on. So which content link? Are there any common themes? Can you link forward to link back? How can you embed the knowledge? How can you embed the skills? So we're going to create a learner journey roadmap on the Jamboard on page 2. And we're going to look at the content areas and how they could be interleaved together. And Patricia's just pulling the Jamboard over, and I'll repost the link in the chat for people who've just joined.
And if you've never used Jamboard before, you've got sticky notes where you can type in, and then you can either save it, and then it will be there. If you want to then remove it, you can just do delete. If you want to, you can add a text box, and you can type in the text box instead. So you've got those options for the Jamboard, and you're moving along. Just when we go to the next activity, it's just your arrows at the top.
I've just re-added the link in the chat for those of you who've just joined. And I'm just adding the content areas so you can have them on the board.
Because this one's quite when you're thinking about music, obviously you need to know where the learners are coming from. Have they done music at year 9? Have they done music technology before? Is all the software new to them? So yeah, the interleaving. Is music technology done lower down the school, or is it just something that then when they get to year 10, it's that option to sort of, if they don't want to go down a traditional music route, they go into the music technology route?
So we've got content area first because we taught some of this in year 9. Good to recap and start off with the course. Great. We've got content area 2 on its own, so students are familiar with the equipment and the software they will be using throughout the course. Great, thanks everyone. So this Jamboard, you can keep adding to it throughout and after the session. This is for you to use. Oh, we've got another one. Content area 3, through practical tasks and listening tasks, linking back to content area 2. Also content area 3, links to our year 9 curriculum and skills. Great. Great, thanks everyone for sharing.
Right, I'll just move that back across.
It's just the next slide. Thanks, Patricia. So we're now going to pause here, and it's a good opportunity to take a look at your plan, do, review template that's within your workbook. So for activity 1, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to consider what you've already done, what you'd like to do today and by next week and by September. So could it be that you also want to deliver content area 2 on its own or as a part of induction? So if you complete your plan, do, review in your workbook on page 5, and I'll just take a minute. So what you already have in place for your curriculum planning today, maybe after this session, it gives you some ideas. By next week, and then by September, and hopefully September will be already ready to go. So Right, Patricia, we'll move on to the next activity.
Okay.
Thank you.
So moving on to activity 2 on Jamboard page 3. So for this activity, I'd like you all to think about the teaching and learning activities or tasks that can enable you to teach the content in an active way to your pupils. So using the Jamboard and the sticky notes, record your answers in the different areas. So for example, you might have external visits to industry or events or seminars. You might have guest speakers. So I'll put that back on for the Jamboard. You might have some practical, I'm just thinking for the ideas, practical workshops as well. So I'll just move that Jamboard across now. So it's page 3 of the Jamboard. We'll have a few minutes to have a look at that.
We've got some extra things on activity 1 as well. Great. So for sound creation, we've got given students a video clip and links to sound libraries. And the task is to plan and create the sound. Great.
Simpsons is always good for that as well. Putting the sound. I've tried that one myself before. It's a good one.
So we've got demonstrations of tasks and software. Trisha's adding some as well.
Just adding what I've done in the past. Almost like a because that's always I find that introduction to the music industry and the music business is often done at the beginning, and sometimes it can be quite a dry one to do. So I used to get them to sort of come up. They were all given in secret a role, a sort of job role, and then they had to be quite imaginative with the presentation, and it was like guess what they do, and then they had to ask them questions about it. I always find it quite interesting with music technology as well, because obviously some teachers of music technology are music teachers and some are quite IT technology teachers, and it's getting that. And some, as I say, I have it as a hobby. And I had a colleague who he was an IT teacher, but he was really into music technology. So he had loads of experience where my background and knowledge came from more of the traditional music route. So, and it's, as I say, some centres work, as I say, within different departments. That would be quite interesting to see what backgrounds people are the music technology it's solely, or the a bit of both.
Got loads of ideas. Like the quizzes as homework.
Yeah, I like the idea as well of the instruction manual. That's a good one, because it can be used in future years as well, or for lower down the school if you've got when your year 9s are coming in, to start using that technology. Yeah, that's a good one as well for that multi-track, getting the students to be both the artist and the producer. And things as well, like when you're doing that multi-track recording and things, videoing it so they can watch it back and see. So they can then, if you're doing a demo, video it and then let them watch it back another time, and if they've got access to it, so they can practice as well, doing that within their own time. Yeah, it's another good one for the introduction for that music industry. That's great. Keep adding. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Please keep adding. Some great ideas.
Thanks, Patricia. So hopefully you found that activity useful and you'll be taking away some great ideas to try out in the classroom. Really full Jamboard there with lots going on. So leading on from activity 2, we thought it would be useful to share best practice, such as resources and or ideas that can enhance effective practice in and out the classroom with your pupils. So using the Jamboard on page 4, please let us know what resources you currently use or what you have within your centre. How do you use them? Is there an opportunity outside the session to share the resources with each other? And a few examples that we've included to get you started could be learners could research a wide range of pre-selected songs that are outside of their listening choices to build their knowledge and engagement within a variety of musics and artists. Or learners could explore the technological developments within styles over time to understand how technology has informed artistic development in context.
I'll put that Jamboard up now.
Could be
So
a glossary of key terminology from the specification to help your learners with revision. So resources that you have and actual equipment as well that you have, physical resources and maybe resources, classroom resources, like a word bank.
one thing I used to do with music technology, I used to give them, the all style spelling books, and used to have a page or a couple of pages for each letter of the alphabet and any new keyword or vocabulary. I did used to get them to do that. I mean, you can do them online now as well, I suppose, but that's one of the things I used to do. So any of those new keywords that would come up, they had almost like their own little guide to keywords. But then again, it's all that different technology that's available. And technology's changed so much. I remember using Audacity. That was a long time ago.
So we've got our year 12, 13 music tech students run an extracurricular music tech club, which is a lot of our year 10 and 11s attend. Great. It also helps train students for schools, events and concerts. Oh, that's brilliant.
What type of musical software would you normally be using? Like, do you have your school bought it in, or you're just trying to use what's available? Logic Pro.
So use of recording studios can be booked. Great. And used by students when they're free. Great. Is there any other sort of resources that you have within your school? So music student library, range of music and music tech books available for students to read. Further into content on topics. Great, that's brilliant. Okay, we'll move on. Should we move on to the next activity? And the Jamboard will stay there for you to add and share resource ideas that you have. So again, we'll go back to your plan, do, review and looking at activity 2 and 3, the active teaching and ideas for sharing resources. We'll just give you a couple of minutes to consider what you've already done again, what you'd like to do today, by next week and by September. So complete your plan, do, review, and if there's anything that anyone else has suggested for resources that's given you an idea, if you could pop that in your plan, do, review. And just give you a minute to. Okay, so if we move on now, Patricia, to the next one, and you can keep adding to this plan, do, review throughout.
Thank you, Beth. So there are free classroom packs, including schemes of work, in a digital and editable format. They contain the ready-to-go teaching and learning materials with everything you need to deliver the VCert effectively. So some of you may have already got those downloaded. And just also be aware of we have got the ones from the previous model VCert that some things might map across to that as well. So they are available as well at the moment. So if you want to get those before that old spec goes as well, and then you've got that combination, but they're all there. So the workbooks will contain the new ones, roundups, which will be short formative assessments for pupils to assess their knowledge using similar question types, so multiple choice, short answer questions, extended responses, and note to those that will be used in the external assessment. You've also got the PowerPoints. Learner workbooks. And then you've got the EA sample materials and the NEA sample materials as well. So the workbooks complement the schemes of work and will include independent study, classroom-based activities. And as I say, these can be used as homework or flipped learning opportunities. So we're going to take a closer look at assessment and in particular formative assessment. So let's recap back to the quote we shared previously, but explore practice testing and how this links to formative assessment and preparing your pupils for the EA and the NEA. So in the context of your curriculum planning and design, mapping the core content and knowledge, understanding effectively, allowing that overlap and naturally holistic links alongside carefully considered spaced practice and well-designed retrieval tasks and testing is an excellent formative assessment opportunity for you as a practitioner, whilst also helping prepare your pupils for the summative assessment of the core exam paper. So research suggests that the practice testing at regular intervals can help prepare students for exams with reduced anxiety as they are used to retrieving knowledge on a regular basis. So it's important that there are a variety of methods for formative assessment, which is contextualized and takes place on a regular basis. It's also important to have both feedback, so focus on past performance, and feed forward, so focus on their development in the future. So formative assessment helps the development of the wider skills, knowledge, competencies, and confidence, and enhances their employability skills, which links to the learner journey explored earlier. As well as gaining knowledge, the students are aware of their skills and how to develop those. So to support in your preparation for delivery in year 10, we are going to spend the next part of the session looking at formative assessment. So on the screen now, you can see a range of formative assessment methods. So which of these do you use? If you can post in the chat, is there any that you don't use and think you might want to try? And what do you use a wide range of activities? So if you can pop anything into the chat of things that you use or that you might use or things you've tried, things that are on there, things that we haven't got on there would be useful as well.
You can see people typing away in the chat. We'll just wait for them to come through. So in the chat, we've got topic test, multiple choice, discussion, think, pair, share, synoptic projects, questioning, true, false. And we've got Steve uses many of these at different times throughout the year, depending upon topic at hand.
Yeah, so for some of the sort of, especially the sort of music business and things like that, Plickers is quite good. Plickers is a free app and you can set it up for different classes. And what you do is they get a QR code and you can put that onto a folder or a book. And this is really good for tracking progress over time, because what you can do is you can hold up the folder, you ask the question, they hold their folder up A, B, C, or D, depending on which answer they think is correct. And then, as I say, you can revisit that as a retrieval a few weeks or a few months further down the line and see if they've remembered it. So that's quite a good one, and it's free as well.
We've also got student presentations and sometime performance recordings to evidence understanding of content area 3. For homework, set listening tasks, multiple choice questions, and identify weaker areas to reteach in the next lesson.
That's great. Yeah, I think recording and that, and then looking back and even just watching and seeing what the looking at what they did good, what they could have done improved on, is also a good technique as well. So moving now on to feedback. So if I said yellow box marking for feedback, is anyone aware of what I mean? And if you can post in the chat if you've heard of yellow box marking. I think that's just jumped ahead, has it? Yeah. So yellow box marking is a powerful method that can address the majority of assessment for learning 5 key strategies. And it is basically live marking, so it puts a greater emphasis on verbal dialogue that is scripted and targeted to help pupils improve their work. So yellow box marking is a more targeted approach to marking that ensures teachers and pupils focus on specific areas of the work rather than the entire piece. And that encourages teachers' feedback to be diagnostic and support improvement. The area of work is clearly marked, focusing on marking key points. So in 2020, a study found that pupils valued verbal feedback over written feedback, and it was stated that pupils who received verbal feedback perceived the feedback to be better in terms of quality, use, quantity, and timing and usefulness compared to pupils who received written feedback. So this can come from peer or self-feedback, and it makes the feedback instant, immediately actionable, and you get that formative feedback, as you'll also see if there's any common errors of content that you need to readdress. And the final idea to consider regarding feedback is the idea of repeating content and the intervals between teaching and feedback and activities.
So it's now time for activity 4 to put some theory into practice. So we're going to share with you a number of formative assessment tasks that can be used and adapted across the qualification, which shows your pupils' current level of understanding of the content. So what we'll do is we'll talk you through each task in a little more detail over the next few slides. And then what we'll do is we'll work together and generate ideas for each task on the Jamboard. Consider how you could adapt the tasks and what the follow-on task could be.
So the Jamboard would be from pages 5 to 14. So I'll put the Jamboard on the screen. So first of all, this is Walkabout Bingo, which contains questions from content area 1, introduction to music technology and the music business. So for this, pupils can only ask their peer 1 question each, and they need to record their answer and the name and then move on. The first person to have all their answers filled shouts bingo. So this task encourages pupils to talk to one another, going beyond the typical think, pair and share, as now they have to engage with different members of the class. It's very simple to create, and it's also adaptable as well. So these are, as I say, on Jamboard 5, but we'll have a look at these after we've had a look at the next few.
So the next activity that we're sharing is expand and elaborate. So teachers can provide statements from any of the content areas or ask your learners to come up with some statements. And these are examples from content area 2, the digital audio workshop, and content area 3, musical elements, musical style, and music technology. And having a but because so allows your pupils to develop the statement in more detail, as well as to develop the detail and complexity of it. It also helps with them extended questions in the EA. So in the chat, can you post a but because, either a but or a because or a so? For the top example, it is important to understand the health and safety measures when using a DAW. So how would your learners respond with a but, a because, or a so? To why it is important to understand the health and safety measures when using a DAW. Because it damages hearings and can it be undone? Yeah,
That's a good one.
because it can cause eye strain if you are working for long periods of time.
I'll move along to the next
There's
slide.
still some
coming through in the
coming
chat.
through in the chat, yeah.
Because I can
So
cause it. That's. Oh yes, I can see them coming through.
I think there's like a delay in the internet, isn't there? So that users can protect their eyes and ears. Great. Thanks, everyone. Right, Patricia, do you want to share the thinking and linking? Thank you.
Yeah, so here are some further activities. So all these templates are available for you to use with your learners on the Jamboard. So this one is the thinking and linking grid. So a content area or a section of the indicative content is chosen, and all the keywords, terminology associated with it are placed in the spaces within the grid. So this is an example from content area 4, sound creation. So your pupils can then roll a dice. The number that's rolled identifies the first word. They roll the dice again. The second number identifies the second keyword. Alternatively, you could roll 2 at the same time and then go along and down. And then your pupils use each of the keywords to think and link together using the links made in the grid. So the links can be verbal, or you can get written links, and they can be used at any point in a lesson. You could use it as a starter, a homework, help create with revision, or just as a break-up activity between activities within your lesson. So this will be on Jamboard page 9 to 12. Another variation on this as well is also questions. So instead of just having keywords, you could have a question. So they would, and you roll the dice and it would go, if you roll 2 dice, it would go along, say a couple, say if it was 3 and 3, and the question might be, name a type of music from the 1960s. And then it's just, you can put a range of questions in there. So there is variations on this as well.
Thanks, Patricia. So the last task is the misconceptual retrieval. So for this example, we've added common misconceptions, myths using content areas 1, introduction to music technology and the music business, and content area 2, the digital audio workshop, DAW, and content area 5, multi-track recording. So your pupils will try and provide a correct or better answer, and through their research will attempt to support their own answers with evidence. So this is on the Jamboard page 13 and 14, so you can add misconceptions from the content areas. Also have some examples of correct or better answers. So now we've explained all 4 formative assessment tasks, we're going to have a play around on the Jamboard for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I've reposted the Jamboard link in the chat and the specification for those of you who've joined slightly later, just so you've got them. So if we all go over to the Jamboard and you can select which one you want to start on first, whether it be the thinking and linking grid or the Walkabout bingo.
So it starts from page 5 onwards.
Great, so we're starting to get some examples. We're filling up on Walkabout bingo, we're filling up content area 3 together. Great. Can we get it filled so that you can all take it away and use it together? Patricia, if you move the Jamboard onto page 6, we've nearly got a full house of questions for content area 3.
Oh, I can see
Nearly
it. I can
there,
see
yeah,
that.
nearly there.
I was just about to add
I
one there
know.
myself. But did it freeze when I'm typing in? Does it?
Yeah. So if we finish this content area 3 together, you've now got something you can use.
So
Done the work
musical
together.
times again. Oh yeah, I've got this. Yeah. This can also be used in non-music technology and just normal music as well. So you can obviously double it up if you do teach both music technology and music.
We've got somebody's busy on the on page 8 on the expand and elaborate. Putting a but because so on slide 8. Right, we'll just spend a couple more minutes. I don't know if you want to all finish the other bingo together for content area 2. But again, this Jamboard is for you to use as a group together to refer back to. You can add notes to each other if you wish after the session. But I think we should get another Walkabout bingo done so you've all got 2 activities. Great. Should we move on to resources and support? And everyone can add to the Jamboard after the session.
Okay,
Thanks, Patricia.
no
Well
problem.
done, everyone.
So in the last part of this session, I'd like to talk you through the support that's available to you in your centres and details of further information and guidance. So on our NCFE website within the VCert page, you'll find out information about why choose VCerts and the 14 to 16 schools brochure that contains information about Key Stage 4 vocational education and how to learn more about VCert qualifications. You'll also find the links to each of the subject-specific pages and contains the information such as the specifications, sample assessment materials, and teaching materials. We also have the Parent Supporter and Pupil VCert Information Hub. And on both pages, you can use to get in touch. You can get in touch function where you can request more information on subjects. And there's also an opportunity to tick the marketing communication box to receive updates on our qualifications, events, and news relevant to you via email, on the phone, or through social channels. So our NCFE website within the VCert page, you'll find the information on why to choose VCerts and more about that qualification. I think that's just gone through, hasn't it? Yeah. And you can see you've got there the subject specific pages. So what you would do is you go to the music technology, you can see you've got your qual details, your support materials, assessment materials, teaching materials, and then further down you've also got links as well. So you can see support, the mandatory qualifications, assessment materials, teaching materials.
There's also the VCERT playlist on our YouTube channel, and there are numerous webinars, CPD sessions and training events which you can access on demand. And this playlist you can also access on demand and technical award to introduction webinar. When you've registered your pupils or you have been approved to deliver this qualification, you will be contacted by the provider development team as part of your onboarding process. So this service is tailored to the individual needs of the centre to ensure your requirements are met. The provider development team supports staff to ensure you are prepared to teach the qualification and are clear on the requirements for the delivery and assessment of the qualification. There's regular CPD sessions throughout the year, especially around those key assessment times, to make sure you're on track and feeling confident. And as you can see, we offer a range of support from the list on the slide. And other support that is available includes our wonderful customer support team, and they can help with first line inquiries, your registration of your learners, bookings on the portal. You can also email vcerts@ncfe.org.uk with any questions that are specially related to the VCERT qualifications.
So in this last section, there's an opportunity to reflect on what you will take away from today's session. You can also look at what your next steps and other opportunities, and you've got the opportunity to ask any questions as well that you may have. So as we're coming to the end of the session, this is your opportunity to take a little time to reflect. You could go back to your plan, do review in your workbooks. You could complete the L part of the KWL activity and highlight a few key points that you've learned during the session, or go back to the Jamboard and share key takeaways. You could look back at your W and say, did we cover the bits you wanted to learn? Or you could answer the questions on page 15 of the Jamboard. So the key takeaways, what you will do next, what impact this will have, and how this will benefit and impact your pupils. Would also appreciate it if you could complete the short evaluation to help make any future improvements or changes to the service and support we provide. So this can be done using the QR code on the screen or the link, which are you able to put that into the chat, Beth?
Yeah, I've posted them in the chat.
That's great. Thank you.
So now we've come to the end of the session, we'd like to do another poll to see how confident you are feeling now with the delivery and assessment of the quality assurance for this VCERT qualification. So with 1 being no to little confident and 10 being very confident. So Patricia, are you okay to launch the poll?
Yes, I'm just back to doing that now. So we've got 100% now at the 7s and 8s. I think we've had people join as well since the beginning, so that's great.
Great. So we've hopefully got those of you who are 7/8s who are the 5 to 6s before. So lastly, are there any questions? What we'll do is we'll stop the recording so you can either unmute your mic and ask questions that you might not want to have recorded, or you can post in the chat. You can also, if you have any further questions after the session, it might be at this moment in time you can't think of any more, you can get in touch with us directly at the provider development at ncfe.org.uk. And thanks everyone for attending, and we hope you found it useful. And finally, on behalf of NCFE, we wish you a continued successful year. So I'll just stop the recording, and then you can either post in the chat or you can unmute your mic and ask any questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. And if not, we can get back to you after the session.